Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We're back with an in-depth interview or chat with Intrepid Cameras, this time with Maxim Grew, all the way from the UK. So Maxim, thank you for having time to talk to me.
No worries.
If you don't know Intrepid, I actually put my Intrepid here on the little tripod so people could see. This is the version 3, which was the last one with the focusing in the front. Now it has the focusing in the back with, that infinity rail. And so, Max, tell me quickly basically what Intrepid does right now, even though everybody knows, but for just in case.
So, Intrepid Camera makes affordable large format cameras and darkroom accessories now as well. So, we've got a 4x5 camera, an 8x10, and a clip on enlarging back for the back of the 4x5 camera, which converts it into an enlarger. We make them all in-house, so we do the bellows, ground glass, camera frames, everything in our workshop in Hove. We're going for about 5 years now. Started off with me in a garage, and now that we've got a team of 8 people and a dedicated factory, we make large quantities of cameras using clever machinery, 3D printers, laser cutters, CNC routers, and because we do everything in-house, we can keep it all affordable, and we ship them all over the world.
Yeah, one of the things I think, well, for anyone that's watching, I did a small documentary on Intrepid when it was a little smaller operation. I don't know how long ago, maybe 3 years ago. I'll leave the link
Yeah.
below and up here just in case people want to watch it to get a bit more of the story. One of the things I think is important is like you said, large quantities. Like you guys bring down the price to the consumer by making batches of cameras instead of making,
Yeah.
because a lot of the large format market right now is more one of, or maybe they do small amounts. I do know, for example, Can-Ham Cameras does maybe 5 cameras, unless they're very
Hmm.
special editions, and then he does 1 or 2. So I think the trick for you guys has been that probably is making 50 or 100 batches of bellows and then frames and then all these little bits and pieces that go into a large format camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been, as you said, 5 years. This is the third version. There's a Mark 4x5 that's in the
Yes.
market now. Tomorrow you're launching, well, tomorrow for us, but probably today for whoever's watching, or maybe another day. March 27th, 2020, you're launching a special edition, all black, no wood,
Yeah.
4x5. So tell me, how did that come to be, considering you started with all wood?
Yeah. So it's sort of a story of how, as a team, we've learned better ways of making things, ways of making things sort of quickly and at quantity. So we've started using higher quality materials, different materials. And as we sort of really settled into the Mark 4x5, so the one after the one you've got there, we started looking at how we could sort of tweak the design. Instead of releasing a whole new camera, we thought about how we could make special limited editions using different materials. So we've got ideas to use some more exotic woods, but the first of the limited editions is the all black version that, it's coming out on Friday, the 27th at 4 p.m.
Yeah, price for that, if people are curious, the 4x5 Mark 4 is £280.
Yeah.
And the Mark 4 all black is going to be £300. So only 20 more pounds. You told me the
So
materials are
it's
a little bit.
320. Sorry.
Oh, okay, 320. Okay. It's
Yeah,
just
the
the
materials are a little bit more expensive and they're a lot slower to make. So the cost is mainly in time that it takes to make them.
Yeah, I think you're combining 3D printed with aluminum and all that. So
Yeah,
3D printing is pretty slow
it's quite
still.
slow. We've got 15 3D printers that can use reuse of a fiber reinforced filament. So we can make quite a few parts in a go, but there's also more aluminium work on this camera as well. So that takes a while to do.
Okay. And one of the questions I had to ask you about, and I think it's a concern to a lot of users I've seen online, going through forums and talking, is the fact that you guys have only been around for 5 years and there's already a Mark 4.5, let's put it that way. So why so much, so many iterations? Why maybe not? And I understand that when you started, I remember this from our first time we met in Brighton, is that you never thought this would be like a business. It was an idea you had at university, if I'm not wrong, that turned into this. But why not maybe try to refine more since the beginning? Because it has been getting more refined each version. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're buying just, the R&D cameras for them. And Mark V will be much better than the 4. The 6 will be, that kind of stuff. Like, what would you explain about that?
So yeah, we've done a new product every sort of 14 months, which, for most companies is a pretty standard product life cycle. When we first started, like I said, it was just myself in a garage without much of an interaction with the community other than a few people on forums. When you start sending out hundreds and now thousands of cameras around the world, you get a lot of feedback. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of irresponsible as a company not to directly put that feedback back into production. So because we grew so quickly, the rate of change in the cameras was quite quickly. And because we do everything in-house, we can make changes sort of relatively quickly. So I guess there were sort of quite big jumps up in quality between sort of the first and second camera. And then there was a few changes for the third one. And then we moved again on to the fourth with a different base design. And I think now we've reached the fourth design of the camera. We're pretty sort of settled on that's the Intrepid camera now. There'll be minor changes along the way, but we're not looking. We've sort of worked with the community and worked with our team to get to the stage we're at now.
Yeah.
So whilst people can make the argument that maybe those early cameras were R&D cameras, that people are using those cameras still now and going out and taking pictures. And if you wanted an affordable way of making art with 4x5 film, then it wasn't an R&D camera. It was exactly what you wanted. If you wanted something to put on the shelf and you're upset that another one came out a couple of years later, then I can see why people would
No,
like
I mean, the thing is, I see what you were saying, that you've launched the product around every 14 months. I mean, large format cameras have been pretty much unchanged for decade, like a century almost. There's a couple little tweaks and the designs can vary one way or another, but it looks like everybody that goes one extreme kind of hits a wall and bounces back to the middle. So like, I think that the life cycle of a large format camera, people didn't expect to see maybe so fast. I understand that growing from a one person team to a bigger team and toolings too, because I remember that the machines you've been buying, some have been supported through Kickstarters. And, they're not cheap machines. CNC, 3D printers, laser cutters, all these things don't come from the very first day, So, no. I mean, not to answer your question to yourself, but like, I think that has a little bit to do. So I remember plywood being the material you guys supported as being very sturdy. I work with wood. Whoever doesn't know about this, I'm a carpenter for a living. And I know plywood is very sturdy because the plies are interchange and the glue can be, water resistant. But now you're going to shift to the 4.5 or 4, special edition 4 is going to be no wood. Is that something that you're looking forward to doing, or are you going to keep some of the plywood?
I think for certain parts of the camera, there will probably always be plywood. Plywood's an interesting one because a big part of our market's in the US, and I think the word plywood has a very different meaning in the US as it does in parts of Europe. Plywood in Europe is like a high quality furniture grade material, whereas I think plywood in the US is sort of a cheap and cheerful construction material that you hide underneath plasterboard and carpets and things. Mm-hmm. So there was a bit of a jump to go over to explain that we're not using that type of plywood. We use finished birch plywood, which has much thinner plies. It's much more dimensionally stable. So it's actually a brilliant material to build cameras out of because it doesn't warp and it's waterproof and it holds its shape nicely. And it comes in big sheets, so you can make loads of parts from one sheet. So I think for those reasons, it's still an ideal material to make 4x5 cameras out of, particularly with the machinery setup we've got. I think the parts that could change are sort of the smaller wooden parts. For example, on the Mark III you've got there, the bottom of the front standard with the screws above it, we've changed that permanently to a different material because it's harder to hold down smaller parts on the machine while you're working with them. But I think in terms of your question, there'll always be a plywood element, I think, in our cameras. Love it or hate it, it's the material we work with.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I do understand to some people it might, like you said, the American market do use plywood in a very construction grade, and it doesn't have to be like that always. So it's a bit of a hard one.
Yeah, it's a different material. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I do know that a lot of people also would love, including myself, is the fact of interchangeable bellows. Why has that never been a feature on the Intrepid camera so far?
So, a couple of reasons. One being that the main reason you'd need an interchangeable bellows would be for wide angle lenses, bag bellows. Our cameras are already quite compact and small, so you can get them sort of as standard. They can accept quite wide angle lenses. And then if you use a recessed lens board, you can go even wider. So for that, there's not really like a massive need unless you want to do quite extreme movements with wide angle lenses. So, and then also just from the affordability point of view, adding an interchangeable bellows is quite a lot more components than you might realize, because you've got to make frames that attach to the bellows that then attach to the camera. So that's an extra 2 components. You've then got to fasten those frames to the camera. So that's an extra set of screws. And when you times that by the several thousand cameras we're making, it's a whole new step, it's a whole new process, and it's just quite a lot to implement. And because it's not a design feature that we feel is strictly necessary, it's not happened. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really.
Yeah. No, I use a Chamonix 4.5 f1, and it has interchangeable bellows. It's true that you say you have the front frame and the back frame, and then you have to have the screws that hold it on. Maybe, and this is a suggestion which I'm sure that you've thought about, is like a special edition architecture Intrepid would be nice, because I do love the fact of having a compact, lightweight camera that you can carry in a small backpack and have a 90 millimeter lens and do some and not crazy architectural. For that, I think monorails are the kings of the world.
Yeah, definitely.
But like, it'd be nice, like I'm the one that uses that kind of stuff. So I'd be the, like, I'll use the Intrepid, but I don't like field photography. So I go in a mountain and I take a picture and I always come back and don't like it. So I think that would be cool to have a special edition, maybe, I don't know, 50 pounds more, and have it with interchangeable bellows, and then an extra 50 for the bellows or something like that. Yeah, that's something.
It's interesting we say about additions, because like, as we've spent the last 5 years, we've been playing catch up and trying to like meet demand, and now we're getting to a stage where we have meeting demands and lead times are getting a lot lower. It means we have time and flexibility to start experimenting with different items in the ranges and making different versions of the 4x5. So yeah, these things you're saying, it's all something we can work on in the future, whereas we didn't really have capacity to do that previously.
I might have to order like a black edition special architecture just for Nico, and I'll pay the extra bits and pieces. But you mentioned something that I think is very important. A lot of people too I've seen I'm in the Intrepid forum, which they have a little Facebook group. It's awesome. And I have an Intrepid thanks to you guys, so I'm there. I kind of look at it more than participate, but like one of the things that a lot of people always ask is like, what's the lead time? I asked to order, week number 1 of the 2020, or I was December, like when will I get mine? Oh, they don't answer. So tell me, what is going on that you guys are either super popular or super non-efficient, which I don't think it is, or what's going on in the terms of shipping, lead time, order time?
So we had a massive amount of orders over the last 6 months. We're talking 150, 200 cameras a month, which is a lot consistently for the last 6 months. And we haven't been able to hire people and train people quickly enough to keep up with producing the cameras. So the lead time got a bit out of hand, particularly just after Christmas. And we were so frantically trying to build cameras that we didn't concentrate on updating our customers. We have since apologized about this, and we've hired people for customer service. We have Naomi and Sidi now, who anyone who's interacted with Intrepid camera will have spoken to, and you can get a response from us straight away. So it was a real sort of growing pains problem, one that I didn't particularly manage properly. I saw a bit of a head in the sand, let's just build these cameras and it'll all be okay type approach, which obviously doesn't work. But we've learned from that and moved on. We've got, like I said, we've got extra customer service people. The manufacturing team has grown considerably. And in, I'd say, 3-4 weeks time, there will be a 1 week, 2 week lead time for pretty much all of our products. So we're rapidly getting that lead time down.
That sounds very good. I think a couple of weeks is normal, especially knowing that you guys are a small team, you're not that small anymore, so I guess not that small. But like, like making a whole camera is not easy. And then you have the options for the color bellows. So I'm guessing that there's
Yeah.
always bellows that you have to fix and stuff. So I was going to ask about sizes. You right now have a 4x5, which we talked that is in the Mark IV and the special black coming out. And then you have an 8x10 version 2. 5x7 has fallen into, and I do know everybody that watches this or whatever, 5x7 has become like the forgotten format. But you spoke about making a smaller back for the 8x10 because the 8x10 was very compact. But tell me about 5x7.
So 5x7 is an interesting one for us. We have got a finished 5x7 camera that we've shown to a few people. I can't remember if I've shown it to you or not. I think I've seen some pictures.
I've seen stories and stuff because
Cool.
we were leading to the photography show, and this would all be live video, not an interview through Skype.
So we're going to have a new 5x7 range coming out we've got a lot of the parts in. There's been a slight slowdown with some of the production lines and suppliers because of what's going on in the world, but unfortunately we ordered a lot of the stuff before this all got quite serious. So I'm not going to give a confirmed date yet, but it's going to be within the next couple of months. We'll have the 5x7 line out, which is from the smaller, less interesting parts, the 5x7 lens boards, and we're going to have some film stocks as well. We'll have a 8x10 to 5x7 reducing back for the 8x10 camera, a 5x7 camera, which is similar to our 4x5 in appearance, but a bit bigger. And we will also have a 5x7 to 4x5 reducing back for the 5x7 camera.
Yeah.
And I think that is everything.
Yeah. The 5x7, what will be the let's say the bellows, like it will be what, 90 to 360, or what will be the range?
Let me just have a quick...
and I'll speak while you look it up, because if you guys don't know, the Intrepid does 75 millimeters to I think around 300-ish. So if you want to do portraits with a 300, you might have a bit of a hard time. I don't know if Max can confirm that, but I do know that 65 millimeters, maybe you need a recessed lens board.
Cool. Yeah, you guessed right. 90 to 360.
90 to 360?
Yep. On the bellows go out to 400 millimeters. So yeah, realistically, you're looking at a 360 lens there.
Yeah, the 360 lenses are not small. Usually, I have a 6.5 aperture, and they're huge. So
yeah, exactly. So you're probably going to be using a 300 mil lens. I think a normal 50 mil equivalent on 5x7 is something around a 180 or a 200 mil. I think
210 is usually
210
approximately is considered the norm.
Cool.
Another thing that's fallen throughout your project has been the film holders. That is a whole video on its own. For those who don't know, when they launched the 8x10, which was a very affordable camera, around €500 pound. I'm not sure right now.
It was 400. It's 480 now, and I think it was a little bit less on the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's
so
50.
So when he launched that, I did an interview, and one of the biggest concerns I had, and I think you had, was 8x10 film holders are really hard to find and getting really pricey. And you guys came out with a solution that was on paper really good, but through development became, I would say, a nightmare for you and probably a couple of users that got their hands on the first versions. What happened there in a very short summary, and will there be a new attempt?
In a short summary, when making prototypes of the 8x10 film holders, they worked really well. They looked good. When making, they were a lot more popular than we thought. So when we had to scale up to make the, 400 and something 8x10 film holders, we couldn't do them at scale. We couldn't hold the tolerances you need at scale. We could have made them one by one and made, one every couple of days.
Yeah.
And bankrupted the company and shipped nothing else. Or we could have thrown in the towel and admitted we made a mistake, and we refunded every single person who.
I remember.
No one lost any money. We lost loads of money, but they didn't lose any money.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I can understand that. I remember when you guys admitted that it was no more. You not only did reimburse everyone, and you made a whole very good blog post or Kickstarter post about the options in the market so people could find them. And so will you try to attempt something like
I
this?
really want to. It's something that it's like the only like everything we've done, thanks to like a lot of support from the community, has so far been well received and relatively sort of successful. And we've introduced products that people have wanted or have loved. And the 8x10 film holders is something that there's definitely a need for, and something that we completely got wrong. And I would love to right that wrong. But at the minute, we don't have. There's some machines I'd need to buy, and at the minute we're going to focus on getting the lead time down, improving customer service, 5x7, and then once we've got everything running nice and smooth how we like it, then maybe I'll take another crack at 8x10 holders.
I can say as a user of all those formats, 5x7, 4x5, 8x10, film holders are really not simple to make.
No.
And I don't think even less than a scale, like, yes, maybe you can, 3D print some parts or whatever, machine a couple, but like if you want to make them affordable, you guys were selling them, I think, at £50, which was great as affordability, but, as you said, like making them for £50 is a very different story.
It was definitely possible on paper and possible in prototyping. The material cost was really low for the film holders, but when we went into production, the amount of wastage from parts that weren't working, and then how we had to slow everything down to get holder tolerance, suddenly it didn't matter about the low material cost. The time cost just absolutely rocketed. That was that.
I can imagine. Someone asked me, because I asked a friend of mine that's very on top of what you guys do. He said if you guys were going to ever make something like a 6x17 camera. I do know that implies a film holder for Rollfilm, which is a totally different beast. But like, have you ever considered, or is there like, apart from sheet film cameras or sizes, is there anything else that you're thinking about?
We haven't thought about. I think I don't know. People have emailed particularly about 6x17. The only thing that I sort of crossed my mind when I was having a bit of a daydream about it was something that works, specifically designed to work with the day 6x17 holders.
Yeah.
But I think it's such. I mean, like I said, if we sort of get to a stage where everything's running so smoothly, we've got flexibility to do small runs. But I think whilst it would be a great product to have and something that I would also enjoy shooting with, it's such sort of a niche within a niche within a niche that I just don't know whether it's within Intrepid's remit to like produce a product like that, and whether we sort of, the service we provide is that we make affordable products that like are sort of consumed by quite a few people relative to the size of this market. And that's how we can keep them affordable. If we start doing all these other little bits and bobs, I worry that we'll sort of overwhelm ourselves again, and the quality of everything will fall off, which is my sort of biggest concern.
Yeah, one of the things I think about 6x17 field cameras is everything has to be reduced, which is not exactly what is nice, because the smaller you're making something, the more precise you have to be with every single thing on a camera. So it's just that question that someone asked me, and I wondered. One thing that I want to mention is you said before you're doing a 4x5 enlarger module, which I'll mention it like that because it's not exactly an enlarger itself. It's basically a module that's a graph lock adapter. So any camera that holds a graph lock back can use that. Yeah, you have it there. Basically, you put it on your camera and you can make an enlarger out of a 4x5 if it has a graph lock back. So it doesn't have to be Intrepid. It can be a Chamonix, it can be a Shenhao, it can be a Graflex, whatever it is. Are you guys working onto a bigger version? Because I know some people want, and I think it's a mistake, and I'll tell you why after you answer me, but 8x10 or something like that?
Yeah, we are working on an 8x10 enlarger, and it definitely, larger attachment. It definitely has a lot more challenges than the 4x5 enlarger attachment, because there's no sort of graph lock type system for 8x10 cameras. So it has to fit below the ground glass to be universal and usable on our cameras without sort of a special adapter. And that means it has to be 19 millimeters is the maximum thickness it can be. And when our current enlarger is 34 millimeters. Diffusing light over that short of a distance is quite a engineering challenge, but we have figured out how to do it. And now it's just figuring out how we can make it at scale.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say, and not to say that your product won't work, is I have an 8x10 enlarger, a proper one, actually British made. I don't know how you say it in English. Devere, I guess.
Devere, yeah.
Devere.
I was making some parts for John, who runs Devere. They're
Oh,
just down the road from us.
oh, damn! I
Um,
didn't know.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good to
they're,
know.
yeah. I was making some parts for him for some Ilford auto developer machines. We were printing some gears for that had worn down.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
I have an 8x10 enlarger. I bought it to enlarge 8x10. I have to say, at least in my experience, it's one of the hardest things to do. It's so big of
hmm
a piece of film. The dust is a nightmare.
hmm
Like it's just, and it's a wonderful machine, but like, oh my God, depth of field is such an issue. Like,
yeah,
like one thing that I mentioned about your enlarger, and I think is important to know is everything has to be very square. Like you have to
yeah,
have perfect parallax between the film holder, the light source, and the easel or whatever you're using table. So an 8x10 becomes even more exponentially
yeah.
complicated. So I say whoever's wanting to buy one, not to say that you got yours won't work, but it's like think about it twice and then again and then think about it again just in case, because you're gonna get I get very frustrated with my proper
hmm
like real deal enlarger. I don't recommend it honestly. I always say like just get a 4x5. They're wonderful. They're more affordable. You can find them. But yeah, I'm sure that everybody that wants one really wants one. So hopefully it'll
Yeah,
work
so I think
well.
it'll be more of a niche. Yeah, I mean, once you get used to setup, the one I've tested, yeah, you have to do the making sure everything's parallel, and definitely use it on a copy stand instead of a tripod. You can use the 4x5 one on a tripod quite successfully, but for 8x10, use a copy stand, make your life easier.
Yeah, I have my wooden tripod here, which someone was asking if you guys have ever considered a tripod. I do know that wood tripods is something made in. There's the back, and then there's another one in the U.S. that I'm totally Ries,
Yeah,
Ries.
they were at the photography show last
Yeah.
year, which was they look good. Yeah, I haven't thought about doing a tripod. Funny, my mum, this was a couple of years ago when I was starting out. My mum rang me, sort of late one evening and said, Max, I've had a great idea for a product that you guys should definitely make. It's sort of, how do I explain it? It's like a stand for a camera. It could have like 3 legs and it could adjust up and down to make it easier to take. I was like, Mum, have you just invented the tripod? And so, oh yeah, never mind. And that was it. But that was a nice contribution from her. So it's
Yeah.
good support.
You need ideas. I mean, out of all these ideas, something comes out. And now that we've kind of covered everything I could think of, I just want to mention that you guys are also have a pretty good community, like we mentioned on the Facebook group and stuff. You
Yeah.
guys are making a zine, and I have it here because I'm going to shoot the video on
Oh,
the
you got the
zine.
new one. Oh,
I got
nice.
the new one here that Naomi sent me, so thank her. I never answered the email when she sent it. It's been crazy these weeks, and everything's been crazy.
Yeah, it
Um,
has. It has. She
it's
won't be
it,
offended. Don't worry.
yeah, I mean, just getting to my studio, I have to supposedly break the law. So basically, yeah, like I think people should, look into it, look at the cameras. One thing that always triggers me, and I want to know your opinion, is why do you never see an Intrepid 4x5 on eBay?
Why? Well, considering we've sold several thousand of them, and I think you never see them on eBay because they're affordable, and because people, even if they're not using it much, think, well, I didn't drop a load of cash on that, so there's no
Yeah.
real need for me to sell it. I can keep it in a cupboard and come back to it later. It's not an asset I've got that's taking up like a financial burden on me. And we also, what you do, whilst you don't see them on eBay, what you do see is hundreds of people on Instagram and Facebook and whatever going out and using them all the time. So maybe people are just using them. And don't
No,
want to sell
yeah,
them.
I agree with you. At the price point they are, it's like, do I sell it for a loss or do I just keep it and maybe use it in a couple of years?
Yeah.
Another thing, last thing I'll ask is, how is it going with customer service repairs? Because when I was there, we did the documentary. I think you guys had a policy: if something broke, you guys would repair it or exchange it. Has that continued to be throughout? Like, if something breaks, I can ask, and is it available throughout the models? Like, if I had a problem with my version 3, could I say, "Hey, Max, my ground glass is standard, but like something broke, could I get a
Yeah.
part?"
So we still support the Mark III 4x5, Mark IV 4x5, obviously, and we've got some spares for the Mark 1 8x10, but we can make most stuff for that still.
Mm-hmm.
And we have obviously complete support for the Mark 2 8x10. Our support policy is if it's a manufacturing error, which unfortunately does happen from time to time, we'll obviously sort it out. Most of the time, we'll just send you a brand new camera and then we'll repair the one or keep it for spares, the one that had something wrong with it. If it's something you did, like drop it down a hill, for example, we'll repair the camera for free, but we ask you to cover the cost of getting it to us and us getting it back to you, or you can drop it in to us, which will save you cost there. The only thing we charge for is if you smash a ground glass, because they're not cheap to make, and it happens all the time.
No,
So
and I know you guys bought a machine to make the 8x10s, and I'm guessing now you make all of them there.
Yeah, we've got a big machine that just sits in the corner shaking, basically, and it makes ground glass for us. Because we used to do it by hand, and it took about 45 minutes for a sheet of 8x10. Yeah. So we used to have a guy, Ben, who would literally just grind glass all day.
Yeah, that's not a fun thing to do.
No.
And one thing that I have to mention is a lot of people sometimes ask me, and I get this question all the time, is should I buy a Chamonix or Intrepid? And we've talked about it having a beer in a pub, but like I think this has a space for a lot of people that already own a very more premium camera, because you can take it to places you might be scared. It's like your second camera that you can be like, I'll put it in a river, and if something happens, it's not going to be my 1,000 euro camera. It's an Intrepid. I can buy another one with not so much money. What would you say?
Ben Horns fell in a river and then he dried it out, and it works perfectly. So.
Well, you guys had one that got smashed by a wave doing the video on Kickstarter, and it still worked. You told me. Yeah,
Sam dropped it in the sea, and then we used that camera later in the video to take some pictures. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's mostly waterproof.
No, yeah. I mean, except for the lens, I think everything else can dry up and wash out.
Yeah. No worries.
So any other thing that you think I didn't ask, Max, that you would like to tell people throughout this channel, that there's a little small window on the internet today?
Wash your hands. Stay at home.
Yeah, that's what we all have to do. Okay, well, Max, thank you for joining me. I hope the 4x5 special edition black will sell well, and hopefully we'll see all these products roll out. I will be doing on the news and all that, more support through what happens. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next one.